my dad got separated from the men. His dad and his brother, they shot the rapids. They were trying to shoot the Whitehorse Rapids, which is an impossible thing. It was a shortcut back to where they wanted to go, don't you know? So it was worth a gamble. You know, you'd get make a raft, and having been raised on the river, you see, they were used to log booms and working on the water, spinning a log. You know, all three of them, my dad, and my grandfather, and Uncle Ed. That's all they ever knew was the water. Just like you know the beat down there in Culver City on the pavement. Well, they walked on water all their life. They're used to that. They were all great swimmers and divers, and they held various championships on the Willamette River for swimming, you know, back in those days. That's how your dad became a great swimmer, because my grandfather, or your grandfather, was a great, and his dad before him. The water was their life, you know, they lived on the water. I've lived on the water all my life. I wouldn't be away from the water. I gotta be around water, right? I'm not happy. I don't know how you feel about water. Probably other than taking a bath, you probably never get in water, but that my dad was, he talked about all those stories up there in Alaska.
Did he fall in the river or something, or?
Oh yeah, he got, and he saved, whatever he had, it was enough of whatever he saved. I don't know what he saved or scrounged out of the thing. And he scaled the walls of that canyon, and he went up, and I think he said the Indians took care of him in their various camps until he got back to where he could meet where he knew his father and his brother were. And the history of which my sister Anne is supposed to have that history, and you probably would have a more of a story, you know.
Well, she sent me a copy of it.
And you could probably trace some of this
Yeah.
stuff that I'm telling you, you see. And they had, they must have had a lot of knowledge of what the Indians did there and how they lived, because he talked of the burials, the grounds, the bodies hanging in the trees. They'd hung them in bags, you know, deerskin bags up there, because they couldn't bury them. You know, they had to wait till the summertime to bury them.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it was frozen ground, so they'd hang the dead who died, they'd hang it in a tree to keep it away from the animals, you see. And he talked about going through these cemeteries, and he talked about bones rattling and all that, which, you know, he laid it out. He had a big story for us, you know. And he talked about you never went outside and took a leak because it would freeze right to the ground. You had to take a stick with you and and knock it off, man. You'd be in trouble. You wouldn't dare sit down and take a crap. He said you'd be there, he said, for eternity. Everything froze, you know. It was 50 below, you know. And he told old wild stories, you know, about the thing. He said one of his favorites was they went in and listened to some guy come up there to talk one night, give him a talk. It could have been anybody, Bret Hart or anybody else, you know, some famous writer come up there to give him a talk at some auditorium. And it was so cold that night that that summer they sat out in front of the place and opened the door, and as the voice unfroze, it all came out, and they listened to the speech in the summertime. It froze right in the air. And they just opened the door and sat out there and listened to this guy talk. You know? That's how cold it was. But he had a lot of wild stories like that. But